guys! Today we're going to be making a Beetlejuice inspired cheesecake. The goal of this cheesecake is to make a purple crust to mimic the purple around his eyes, a striped cheesecake filling, and then to top it with a green whipped cream to mimic his hair. As I start to go over the ingredients and how I'm going to achieve those colors, it might get a little bit confusing. If you do get sort of confused and have any questions, please feel free to ask those in the comments below. We're going to start off by making the purple crust. Now the purple crust is actually going to be a blueberry shortbread crust. For the crust, you're going to need 240 grams or 2 cups of all-purpose flour, 50 grams of granulated sugar, a fourth a teaspoon of salt, 113 grams of unsalted butter, which is also 4 ounces, 8 tablespoons, or a half a cup, 1 egg beaten, and then you'll also need some purple food coloring. Or if you're going to use natural food coloring throughout the cake like me, you're going to make some purple food coloring from purple cabbage. You can find my recipe and how to do that in this video right here on natural food coloring. And then you'll also need 1 cup of wild blueberries. Now here is where it might start to get a little bit confusing, so I'm going to try to explain it the best I can. If you're going to be using just regular purple food coloring, you're just going to add the few drops of purple food coloring to get the color you like, and then you'll mix the blueberries at the end of incorporating all your other ingredients. If you're using natural food coloring like me, what you're going to do is you're going to take a half a cup of the purple food coloring from the cabbage and the 1 cup of wild blueberries. You're going to add them to a saucepan with a half a cup of sugar, and you're going to bring it to a boil and then mash the blueberries, then turn the temperature down to low to a simmer, and you're going to reduce it until you have about a half a cup of a really thick mixture, and it will end up a really dark purple like this. Now, if you are wanting your crust a little bit sweeter and you're just using the purple food dye and adding in the blueberries at the end and mixing your crust ingredients, you can add another 1/4 cup of sugar if you like. If not, it's delicious as it is anyways. To start making the crust, we're going to combine the flour, salt, and sugar in a mixing bowl. And we'll whisk these ingredients together. We're now going to add the butter and the egg. I'm going to start off by just using a fork to work that butter and egg into the mixture. Pause for just a second. If you're just using regular purple food coloring, this is when you want to add it. You should have a very crumbly mixture, kind of like when making pie dough. If you're using the natural food coloring, we're going to go ahead and add this now. You should now have a very purple dough. Here I have a springform pan. It's lined with some parchment paper on the bottom, and the sides are rubbed generously with some butter. I then did a double layer of aluminum foil around the base of it. We're just going to break off little pieces of the dough and start adding it to the bottom and sides of the pan. And of course, to do that, we're just going to use our hands to press it. And this is what the crust looks like. We're now going to place this in the fridge while we move on to the filling. Now moving on to the filling, the ingredients you'll need are 32 ounces of cream cheese, which would be 4 8-ounce blocks of cream cheese from the store. But if you want to make my homemade cream cheese, you can find that video right here. It's better. 2/3 a cup of granulated sugar. If you want it sweeter, use 1 1/4 cup of sugar. I personally do not like super sweet cheesecake, so that's why I'm using only 2/3 a cup. 5 large eggs, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, a 1/4 a teaspoon of salt, and for the stripes are going to be simply traditional cheesecake with a chocolate cheesecake. So for the chocolate cheesecake part, you're going to need a cup of dark chocolate chips, a 1/2 cup of dark cocoa powder, a half a cup of black coffee, and if you're using just regular food coloring, you're gonna want a few drops of black food coloring to turn that chocolate a black color, because we're mimicking Beetlejuice's stripes on his suit. Or you can use a little bit of food grade activated charcoal. But if you don't have either on hand like me, we're gonna use a little bit of natural blue food coloring, recipe found in my natural food coloring video I mentioned before, as needed to create kind of a blackish color, since brown and blue make a black sort of color. Going my route, it won't be a perfect black, but it'll do the trick. Before we start on the filling, go ahead and preheat your oven to 232 degrees Celsius or 450 degrees Fahrenheit. We're gonna add the cream cheese and the sugar to a bowl of a stand mixer. We're gonna go ahead and break out this bad boy. And you're gonna wanna use your paddle attachment. We're just gonna go ahead and cream these two ingredients together on a medium-high speed for 5 minutes. Scraping down the sides as needed. We're now gonna add 4 eggs. Save the 5th egg. I've scraped down the sides of my bowl and I'm gonna go ahead and add the first egg, and then I'll turn it on to a medium speed. We're gonna let the egg become fully incorporated before adding the next. We're now gonna add the Greek yogurt, salt, and vanilla. If you don't wanna use Greek yogurt, you can use sour cream instead. We're gonna mix this on a low speed until it's fully incorporated. And of course, remember to scrape down the sides of the bowl as needed. We're now gonna separate 2/3 of this from the bowl and place it into another bowl. Just kind of eyeballing it. Now it's time for our chocolate cheesecake part. We're gonna go ahead and add that mixture of dark chocolate chips, dark cocoa powder, and coffee, along with the food coloring of choice that you'll be using. Here I have mine already mixed up. We're just gonna add it to the bowl of the cheesecake mixture, along with that 5th egg. This mixture should be very thick. Now we'll go ahead and mix this on a low speed until it's all incorporated. And here we have our chocolate cheesecake. Hi, welcome to class. I want to just briefly talk to you about how we're going to assemble this cheesecake, just because it even sounds confusing to me. So I'm going to show you on my poorly drawn diagram. I think a diagram is a chart. My poorly drawn picture, which I need to make darker because no way you guys can see that. 1 second. Recess, I guess. Okay, I used a crayon-like utensil, so hopefully this helps. Right here is looking down on the springform pan. We're going to use piping bags, and we're gonna go along the outside edge and pipe 1 cheesecake, and then using the next cheesecake, we'll go along the outside, making basically rings until we reach the center, alternating both the chocolate and the traditional cheesecake. Here is the see-through side of the springform pan. We're going to pipe like half a layer. So we're not gonna pipe a layer. Basically, we're only gonna pipe half the amount that we would actually pipe to fill the spring pan up. And then we'll go and do a second layer just so we don't do so much that it begins to fall over and swirl into each other. I know it's so confusing. And honestly, I'm explaining it because I was trying to make it make sense to me too. But this is just like I guess the plan of attack in my head. We're gonna hope it works. I think it's gonna work, but fingers crossed. I hope that helped at least one person. But let's go ahead and get started. So I don't have any piping bags, but I just cut the top off and one side off of these gallon Ziploc bags. And I've used this before, it works just fine. See, life hack, you're welcome. I'm just gonna fill one bag with the chocolate filling and then the other bag with the traditional cheesecake filling. So we're gonna go ahead and start assembling the cheesecake filling. I think I'm gonna start with the traditional cheesecake on the outer rim, but you can do whatever you like. Okay, so I do not want to lift it up and tilt it to show you guys, but I will show you before I put it in the oven. So a few tips that I would definitely use the next time that I make this, and I would advise anyone to use who decides to make this recipe. Definitely pipe your chocolate cheesecake first. Like, pipe all your rings for the chocolate cheesecake. It's so thick that you can build like walls with it. So I still did very shallow layers and just built on top of each one up to the very top. But the traditional cheesecake is much runnier and it was starting to kind of run everywhere, literally, whenever I was piping it. So if you do the chocolate cheesecake first, you can kind of keep it from running. Another thing is that if you don't want that issue, maybe add a little bit of melted white chocolate chips to the batter of the traditional cheesecake, just to kind of thicken it up a bit. Plus, it'd be another really good flavor to add to the cheesecake. I would also suggest very small piping holes. Like, don't cut too big of a piping hole. I didn't, and mine was less than the size of a dime. I thought it would be big enough, but yet small enough for me to control where the cheesecake's going, and it was still kind of difficult. So I would do maybe literally like pea size and just really take your time with it. But now that our filling is in the pan, we're gonna go ahead and transfer the cheesecake to a shallow roasting pan. Now we're gonna add some water to the roasting pan. We want the water to come about halfway up on the springform pan. So about 1.5 inches to 2 inches of water. Now before we place this in the oven, I just want to let you know that you will have a bit of cheesecake batter, I guess you could say, left over, especially if you're doing a smaller cheesecake like I am. My pan's about an 8 or 9 inch pan. You can choose to make a bigger cheesecake, or if not, the batter is really great for saving and making little individual bite-sized cheesecakes. We're now going to place this on the center rack of the oven that's been preheated to 232 degrees Celsius or 450 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're going to bake it for 15 minutes. After the 15 minutes is up, we're going to reduce the heat to 107 degrees Celsius or 225 degrees Fahrenheit, and we'll bake it for an additional 60 to 75 minutes, or until the center of the cheesecake wobbles when the pan is tapped. And here's what the cheesecake looks like before baking. Here's our baked cheesecake, and we're gonna go ahead and let it continue to set in this hot water in the roasting pan for an additional 45 minutes. Mine actually got a little bit darker than I wanted it on top, especially in the white part, and I noticed it right around that 15-minute mark. So after that, I just placed some aluminum foil over the top for the rest of the time it was in the oven. And I'll go ahead and show you guys what it looks like up close. And here's what it looks like straight out of the oven. The cheesecake has rested in the water bath for 45 minutes now, so now we're going to go ahead and place the cheesecake in the fridge overnight, or for a minimum of 4 hours. And here we have our cheesecake. Now we're going to go ahead and make that green whipped cream. I'm using about 1/3 cup of heavy whipping cream. And I'm folding in about a teaspoon of organic matcha latte powder. And I'm going to add in about another teaspoon and a half more for color. Same thing, I'm just using a Ziploc bag to pipe the whipped cream. And all I'm going to do is pipe little dollops on the outside rim where each slice would be. And because I'm a perfectionist and the aluminum foil just took a wee bit of the cheesecake off the top center, I'm going to add a dollop there as well. And here we have our Beetlejuice inspired cheesecake. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you happen to like it or found it interesting, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future content. If you have any comments or questions, definitely leave those in the comments section below. I hope you guys have a happy Halloween, happy Samhain, and happy All Saints Day. Happy Halloween!